What's up, guys?
Welcome back.
Welcome back with Lee, Aiden, and Clayton.
Yeah, welcome to Let's Talk About It, guys. We're excited to be with you again. It's great to always be able to gather with you guys as you're jumping in here. Be sure to Austin, good note for those that can't see us. If you're listening to this on the podcast, Austin thinks I'm a little overdressed tonight. And there's going to be a reason for that, Austin, that we get to talk about. Kinsley, thanks for joining us. Lucy, thanks for joining us. Allie, thank you for joining us up in here. Yeah, Austin, there's a reason why that I am actually dressed up tonight.
Gotta respect the drip.
You gotta respect it. A little bow tie action going.
Right, got the bow tie action going. And bow ties for me are a tradition. Yeah, and so we're talking about tradition tonight, or traditions. We're kind of in the middle of Holy Week right now. That's when we're recording this. So, and with that, typically comes a lot of like family traditions or other kinds of traditions or things that you do. It just brings up the spirit of traditions. And for me, one of my traditions is on special days of the year, I wear bow ties. It's my own personal way of celebrating. I would call it a bow tie day, and then there are certain days that I call full bow tie days. And so I have my own little ways of kind of celebrating that kind of different stuff. But what comes to mind when you guys think about traditions?
Easter egg hunts.
Yeah, once a year Easter egg hunts during Easter time. Whoa.
Well,
What are you doing over there? He's never worked an iPhone before.
Oh my lord.
it jumped to Siri, and I didn't ask it to be Siri, and it was Aiden's phone. So I'm like trying to keep up with you guys out there with us. Ryan Mosman, good evening to you as well. Meryl May, thank you for joining us. Leslie, good to see you always. So traditions, what comes to mind when you think traditions?
Family dinners.
Okay, nice. Family dinners.
Yeah. And then we said Easter egg hunt. Like that's like a once a year kind of thing. But
Like big holidays, you comes like with Christmas, like you have like your big Christmas party or whatever. Easter, you got your Easter egg hunts.
Yeah.
So kind of like bigger holidays, you usually see the more tradition like stuff.
Yeah. Bigger holidays. When else do you see traditions? Like when do you guys have traditions? What do you think about when you think of traditions? Let us know. We'll be reading some comments as we come through here because we're talking about this idea, right? Because we're in Holy Week. It's a special week. We got a big holiday coming up with Easter. So you guys have mentioned Easter egg hunts as a possible thing. But like what other ways do you see traditions lived out other than just get-togethers or celebrations and things like that?
You see it all over the place. I think another big thing is like for foods, people like have Taco Tuesdays and stuff like that.
Yeah, Taco Tuesday. That's a tradition, right? You keep doing it. And at camp, it was Tie-Dye Tuesday was a thing that we did. There was Wildlife Wednesday at camp. So they would wear shirts with some sort of like wild animal on it or something. Throwback Thursday, that's a tradition. All sorts of different things can fall into this line of tradition. So when you think about big holidays, so you mentioned meals, you mentioned parties. A way I dress, like this, there's certain ways that you dress. You might dress a certain way for traditions. And so what other ways do you feel like there are some traditions in your homes or in your lives?
well, I think most people do this, but around Christmas time, we put up a Christmas tree.
Yeah,
That's a tradition.
yeah.
Tradition.
Some sort of decorations and things like that, something. And so it's interesting, like Palm Sunday this past week, a lot of people put palms on their doors, you know? I think there's a day that we don't really talk about a whole lot here, but like Epiphany. So Epiphany is when we typically celebrate that the wise men came to visit Jesus. And so there's a tradition, actually, a long tradition of doing this like chalk marking over the top of doors that in some ways it's got the year on each side. So on this year it would have 20 and 20, but then it would have CMB, which you can see as the name of the wise men historically. And that's the first letters of their names. Or it can be Christ bless this home, right? I think in Latin it translates to something like that. So there's so many crazy different ways, but a physical space is what we kind of got there, right? There's things we do, but there's also physically how we kind of do different things and stuff like that. All right. Morals. Okay. So I'm going to need you to expand on what that means, that morals are our tradition. And I think another way, this has been coming up lately, actually. We've been trying to say, like, how do we celebrate Easter this year since we don't have the tradition of going to a church service? Because Christmas, there's all sorts of traditions that come away with it and so many outside things that you guys have mentioned. But other than the egg hunt, like, what is there to do for Easter? Or what have you seen people do for Easter?
We
Color eggs.
One year we shot off cannons and we did it for like a while because my uncle had like a cannon, and we would shoot it off. It was pretty
like
cool.
like cannonballs.
No,
like
we
a
would
big-
just pack a bunch of stuff into it and
Oh,
shoot it
yeah,
off.
yeah.
But it's pretty cool.
For Easter?
Yeah, that was our tradition.
Okay, yeah, and sometimes there's no obvious connection, right? But
Yeah.
it's something you do. Okay, awesome. And but egg dyeing eggs. Like I remember my dad, even when we were all in college, was still dyeing eggs on Easter and would send them home to our respective schools that we were going to because it's just a tradition. He'd always done it with us. We didn't hunt for them anymore, but at least they were all colored eggs, and we thought it was silly, but it was just something that he was doing. Like another one that we did growing up for Easter is at some point during this Holy Week, we'd always watch King of Kings. Have you ever heard of that movie? So it's like a really old movie from like the 60s or something like that. And it was just a really good movie about the life of Jesus and his death and resurrection. When I was a kid, I thought it was the longest movie in the entire world. But we would do movies that would think of that way. So like Ben-Hur would also be a movie that we would probably watch because Ben-Hur traditionally is one that talks about the life of Jesus toward the end of it. This guy, Ben-Hur, comes into it. Oh, cool. Okay, tomb cookies. I've not heard of that one. So baking though, food. So we talked a little bit about food. I mean, think about it. So like, do you guys have certain traditions when it comes to, I mean, obviously Thanksgiving, Christmas, like what are some of the food traditions you guys have seen?
Turkey, ham,
For the Thanksgiving or for turkey for Christmas?
both, man.
Oh, you getting bougie up in on us.
Yeah.
My mom usually makes like like a fudge cookie ball. So like, but every year she does them, like powdered sugar on them stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So some sort of cookies at Christmas time for sure.
Oh yeah. What about you?
So like, I mean, the green bean casserole is always a popular one at either one of those. It's typically turkey at Thanksgiving. Christmas lately, we've actually been going brisket, like because I mean, trying to get out. I'm not a big ham guy. But it used to be Christmas ham. There was an Easter there where we have a lot of people joining in with us. What's up, everybody? What's up, Terry Lynn? What up, Chelsea? Thank you for joining us. What up, Keegan? Good to see you in here with us too. We're talking traditions. And there was one Easter though that I actually went and got lamb for my family, cooked lamb and
Really?
like made different things. So that was kind of neat. I mean, because we don't really think about eating lamb for Easter or something like that. There's typically pumpkin pie for both Thanksgiving and Christmas for sure. My aunt always does like fudge or cookies or something like that. So when we go to see my grandparents, there's always a ton of that. But there's kind of foods associated with different things and family meals and coming together. And I mean, there's always the broccoli with the hollandaise sauce, stuff like that. We're big food. I learned this past Christmas though, not everybody does that kind of stuff.
Really?
Like, so some people are like, we just order pizza. And I'm
yeah.
like,
Oh yeah,
what?
that is true.
What? Are you allowed to do that?
That's my dad. They usually just do Chinese. That's their thing every Christmas is Chinese food, and that's just what they do.
I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen Chinese food. I had actually had a really close Jewish friend of mine that would be their Christmas was Chinese food was how they did it because I mean most places were closed
Yeah.
for Christmas, so they'd order Chinese on that day, or I think they ended up going on cruises that week too. But it was just kind of interesting. But that was their tradition, like even for Christmas and something like that. So when I start, so we talked about all sorts of different types, and please continue to bring in traditions. But I want you to ask this question of yourself: why do we have traditions?
It's tradition. You can't break a
It
tradition.
just happens. Like there's no way around it. It's all we've known. Is tradition.
Well, because we actually joke, we joke a little bit around here that once you've done it once at Trinity Klein, it's a tradition, you know. Like, but we've always done it that way. Actually, we just did that last year, but like, so I want you to think about that. Why do we have traditions? Okay, there's a level of it's just what we've done, but I want you to kind of take it to that next level now, because that's kind of the surface level. Well, we have it because that's what we've always done. But what are some of the other deeper things behind traditions and why we do them? Peyton, thanks for joining us.
I feel like it's
Tyler, thanks for
a
joining
way
us.
to like relate with other people that have come before you, and like to have that same like experience that they did. Maybe not necessarily at the same time, but in the same way.
Yeah, totally. So there's some sort of connection to the past or a connection to people who have gone before you too. So certainly because it becomes really obvious when those people aren't there anymore. So when you don't have them there for certain traditions, or when the tradition has changed. So like a good example of a tradition in my family is so Austin, always the comedian, man. Breaking things is a tradition for you, and that's why your name is Wrecking Ball Kearns. Yeah, but like when I think about my family tradition, we always 4th of July. Like, is that a holiday where you think tradition?
Fireworks every year.
Sure, yeah, fireworks. For my family, it's the hope side of the family all comes together. Typically, that was like the reunion piece. So like when we were little, like how many cousins? There's 4 of us, 3 of them, 2 of them, 2 more. So imagine like 12 to 14 cousins and their parents and their animals all coming to the same house. So like it was a party all the time. It was at my grandparents' house, and they live on the water on the coast of Alabama, so it's kind of nice. The bay, not the Gulf. But it's always been awesome. It's always been a whole lot of fun. Well, as we got older, like it's a whole different ball game to have 14, like 10 and below, than it is to have 14, 18 and above. Like it's a totally different ball game. So that tradition for us has changed, and it's kind of hurt because there is this connection to the past, the way things were and the way things are. So we have to now ask that question of how do we carry out tradition when things are changing and stuff like that. But why does it hurt? So why does it hurt when tradition, because this is getting to that why we have traditions. So why do you think we have traditions? Why does it hurt when traditions change?
It's like a comfort zone, isn't it? It's like something you experience, like either whether it's once a year or once a week, but it's something you get to feel comfortable with. And it's like on like a schedule almost. Something that you keep repeating, right?
Yeah. So there's a comfort level, a familiarity for sure. There's a familiar piece. What were you going to say, Clayton or Aiden?
I was pretty much going to say the same thing. Just like familiarity, you're used to doing it, so it's just kind of ingrained in you, and it's just a way that it's the way it's supposed to be done.
Totally. And we got some really fun stuff coming through the comments right now. So Corey said remembrance. So there's a level of remembrance and remembering things and honoring things that kind of goes with this connection to the past that we talked about and connection to other people. Noah mentioned, I think part of tradition is commemorating something positive. So I like that word, commemorating. So again, there's this level of honoring something, not just in the past, but in the moment too, especially when I think about this week. I think that's a really great word, commemorating. Max said traditions exist as collective or past intellect. So there's a shared experience is what we're getting at there. That's the collected piece of it. And so there is definitely this connection with one another. Hannah, thanks for joining us. And then Caroline, it sets the holiday apart from regular days. Yeah. So there's this set apartness to traditions. This is special. This is different. And Michelle just said it honors those that have gone on before us too. And so actually, have you guys... And this is a little bit of confession time. On Netflix, there's a show, and I'd call it a girl show.
No.
It's called Heart of Dixie. Have you ever seen this? Anybody out there seen Heart of Dixie? I'm going to reference it. Because I like it because... one, it's from where my grandparents, it reference their hometown all the time. It referenced Fairhope. So it captures life there. It talks about the Auburn, Alabama rivalry all the time. But it's this small little make-believe town. It's a made-up town. It's not a real town. It just references real towns. But it's a town that has a lot of traditions. And it really wrestles with this concept of what it means to have a tradition, what it means to commemorate the past, what it means to live in the present and set it apart and kind of be special. I think it's a matter of stepping out of the ordinary in order to step into something that's kind of meaningful. And I think that's probably a big word for me when it comes to traditions is meaning. Okay, so when I say that, like when I connect the words meaning and traditions, if you had to talk about that, what would you say? How do traditions give meaning to things?
Usually they're going to reflect something that is good or was good at a time. So like whether it's remembering, I guess.
Why bust? It's nice for you to join us, Tyler. Good to see you, man. Go ahead. Sorry, remembering. Yeah.
Okay, so like remembering, I guess, those like who have fallen or like maybe someone from family from the past. But it's usually some I'm just totally lost train of thought. But like that kind of aspect of just remembering the good times. Usually, because majority of the time the tradition's gonna be good. There has to be something good about it. It's
Sure.
let the good times roll. They just want to keep.
But I like how you keep connecting it, like some of our people did, to people, and it's like Aiden did when he started. There's some people that bring it meaning because other people did this before us and did it together. There's a meaning behind it too. What were you thinking, Aiden, when you think of why do traditions give meaning to things?
I mean, you think we celebrate one of the biggest traditions in, worldly history. And obviously there's like Clayton said, there's that goodness behind it, but it also shows sacrifice. And behind sacrifice, there's a lot of meaning that goes into that, whatever had to happen for that to happen. So you celebrate what had to be done for everybody else.
Sure. And then you can connect it to things like 4th of July, Independence Day. You know, why do we still celebrate Independence Day? Well, because that's kind of a big deal.
I think a lot of people overlook the history aspect of things when it comes to traditions. They just think of it as, it's just 4th of July. We're just going to pop up some fireworks and have a good time.
Yeah. Why do you think that's so easy to do now?
Because we're so far attached from when it happened. None of us lived to see it. So it's like, it's just history.
Yeah. So the further we get from something, the harder it is to kind of really get behind it. And so that's why it's kind of interesting. So I want you also, so I mentioned Heart of Dixie. Think of other, I'm even just some Disney movies are popping into my head. What are some other movies or what are some other TV shows maybe that you felt have really taken home the heart of the message of why we do traditions and this whole idea of bringing meaning? Like share some of those with us so we can kind of talk about those. Do you guys have any coming to mind that think about traditions?
Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon.
Okay,
Ooh,
so talk about it. Talk about it.
Gosh, we watch that movie every Christmas all the time.
A tradition. Yeah.
I could probably quote that movie without like anything. Like it's bad. We watch it so much.
That's awesome.
But it talks about how they go out in the middle of nowhere to go pick their tree as tradition, and they're not going to just go to some Christmas tree farm to go just get one.
Oh, sure.
They're going to go out in the wilderness and they're going to get a real tree. And that just shows the tradition aspect of that and how he's willing to go out in the middle of nowhere in the freezing cold to keep that tradition alive.
Yeah. And the lights and the meal and the songs.
If you haven't seen the movie,
everything.
It's a great movie. You should watch it.
And I think about like my family, my cousins, right? They watch A Christmas Story every year. Like that's their one. That like, how would you not? My family will watch Elf every year. My little brother and I, we watch a Marvel movie every year at Christmas time. So it's just become the tradition. It's just what we do together as a way. And so this year for Christmas, he was like, "Well, which one are we watching?" I was like, "Endgame, duh." and he's like, "Wait, really?" And I was like, "Yes. Like, how can we not?" Next year or this year, that'll be a question mark. I don't know what we'll watch. What do you think of, Clayton, when I think of that? What are some movies that have taken home the heart of tradition for you?
I'd say The Grinch, because every year, like once we get our tree like right there at the beginning of December, like December 1st, like right after Thanksgiving, and usually we'll decorate the tree and we'll put ornaments on while watching The Grinch. And there's just something about like we always watch it every year. It's the live one, not the cartoon one. So it's like the original one.
Oh
with Drew
wow!
Carey.
Okay.
It just is tradition. There's something good about it. It almost feels magical.
Okay, interesting, because that's also a movie that's about traditions. So think about it. The Who's Down in Whoville, they always have the meal, they always have the same decorations, and the whole point of that story is the Grinch saying, I'm going to take this away so that I can take away Christmas. And spoiler alert, at the end of it, they kind of say, actually, the holiday is special because it's the holiday, not because of all the traditions, even though the traditions are wonderful and great. So it's a really interesting one that's the one that came to mind that is a tradition that also brings home the heart of tradition too. So we kind of chose this topic intentionally. Okay, so Clayton, your sister is bringing one out. Yeah. So White Christmas, Mom Singing Sisters. Tell us about that.
Well, we usually watch White Christmas as well.
And what is this about moms singing sisters?
They go sisters, sisters.
Oh, there's a song. Okay,
yes,
okay.
this is a song.
So there's a song within this
He's
movie
very
that,
uncomfortable
that
right
Clayton's mom sings as he's doing it. I
It's a
mean,
very old movie.
it is very.
it's
I've
very
seen the
old.
movie. I just haven't seen it well enough to know it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an old musical.
Awesome. So,
why I
but
like it.
but like probably another thing about traditions. I mean, I think of traditions. I know y'all's high school recently last year put on Fiddler on the Roof. It was a show that's all about traditions. Tradition. Yeah. So that's kind of the idea behind it, and it wrestles with it. How do you honor tradition? How do you continue to carry on and have new traditions and things like that? Actually, I know families when people get married for the first time and have their own kids, they have to ask as a couple, like, what traditions are we going to carry forward? Because you're bringing your traditions, I'm bringing mine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of traditions. Are we going to take some of yours, some of mine? Are we going to have brand new ones? You know, so traditions, but all because we're chasing after this thing called meaning. All because of that. So why
have meaning?
why do we chase it? Why do we need it?
Why are we on this earth? Meaning. For some reason, tradition gives us that sense of like meaning, to be with like others, I guess, and to like have something to say that this is something that we do together during this time.
It's a purpose.
It's a purpose to always come back, I guess. For groups, it's purpose to come back together, like whether it's families or friends, there's a tradition, and there's a purpose for that tradition. So it's not like the traditions is just random. It's usually because there's a purpose behind it.
Yeah, no, I really like that. Like meaning brings with it purpose. I don't necessarily think it creates purpose, because I think that we've all been given a purpose by the God who created us, but it brings with it some purpose. And so when you don't have traditions or when you don't have meaning, how does life feel in that moment? Meaningless. Yeah. So, and that's where you kind of go down the road. The fancy word is nihilism. So all is nothing, all is meaningless, which interestingly is in the Bible. All is vanity in the Ecclesiastes. Solomon's really old, but also really like down about everything at that point. And what he's talking about is kind of the things we typically chase after are meaningless. But it's interesting, when there is no meaning, that's when life can be loneliest. I mean, I think even when you think about the stuff that you guys, or there's times in your life maybe when you feel pretty down or when you feel like life's kind of whatever, it might be because there's not a lot of meaning in your life at that moment. So there's that level of it. Okay, so we've been talking about meaning. We've been talking about traditions, things like that. We're in Holy Week. That was the whole purpose of us kind of using this topic of traditions this week. So I want you to think about it then. How does our conversation so far, traditions, meaning, tie into Holy Week for you and for you guys?
Well, I mean, you think we just did a really big tradition not that long, maybe 30 minutes ago. We did a very big tradition that's been carried out through the church for a very long time. And, we talked about already how we're going to do this online and stuff like that. And carrying that tradition, at least in one way, is a way to keep it alive instead of letting it just die off because of what's going on right now.
Yeah. So Maundy Thursday. So what's always fascinating is it's a tradition for us, a new tradition, the Lord's Supper is, but like on the night when Jesus gave it, they were carrying out probably one of the greatest traditions they had at that point. They were carrying out the Passover meal. And I was thankful for Pastor Chris talking about it a little bit, the meal that they would have been celebrating tonight. Pastor John at the noon service today. All these are available. Well, Pastor John's, the noon services are available on demand on the app and things like that, or you can go to our website. But Pastor John really expanded upon the meal tonight, or this afternoon with it. And it was this tradition. It's this meaning. I still have Jewish friends, and I have a good friend of mine from college is actually a rabbi, and she posted a picture of how they were actually doing virtual Passover meal even with her family. So she had her and her boyfriend were sitting there having Passover while there was a meal in New York. I think she's in Michigan. She has family in Texas, and they were all having the screens to be able to do Passover this year. But there's this deep meaning that comes from telling the story of people who've gone before us, telling the story of what's happened for us before. Okay, good. So good connection there. So what else comes to mind when you think of tradition and meaning in this week?
In this week, I guess every year we see that the same thing happens for in the church. We see the palms come through the thing. So it was weird this year because we didn't get to see palms go down the aisles to the service to recognize Palm Sunday.
Yep.
What else is there? There's a boatload of tradition that comes with Easter in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Palm Sunday that starts it. So not seeing palms, not hearing the story in the same way maybe, but then you have Maundy Thursday, which is recognizing a whole lot of stuff. You have not only the Last Supper, the Lord's Supper, but you also have the foot washing that happens on that night. You have Jesus going to the Garden of Gethsemane and praying and being arrested, and he's going through his trials. And then tomorrow is Good Friday. And so with Good Friday, there's all sorts of traditions in so many different ways, especially in the Catholic and Lutheran churches and some more traditional Methodist, Episcopal, sometimes Presbyterian as well. So you see a lot of that celebration. And then you go to Easter Sunday, but even in between that, there's even a service for Saturday. We don't do it. We do a sunrise service on Easter typically, but it's actually called an Easter Vigil is where it started. So it was something that started, and so that the service would at midnight. I've been to one actually in Houston, Greek Orthodox Church, very traditional. At midnight, they say Christ is risen. So that's the Easter Vigil. So it's Holy Week. It's Holy Saturday. He's in the tomb. You're still mourning. And then it's a pretty dark, but you're going throughout the time. You're talking about readings from Genesis throughout the Old Testament until finally you hit it's Easter and the Greek Orthodox, it's Christa Anesti. Christ is risen. And so you hear everybody saying at your greeting, you go outside into the street and tell the street. It's kind of beautiful. It's kind of cool. Because again, there's meaning. So here's ultimately the question. The church, right? We think, I don't care if I'm 18, I'll miss Easter egg hunts. Thank you, Lexi. Brady, good to see you. Thanks for joining us, man. But yeah, so when we think about meaning, and especially meaning within the church and traditions within the church, we give a whole week to this. And technically we give a whole season because even the 40 days after
The
Easter.
Lent season.
Well, and so yeah, you have the Lenten season, the 40 days beforehand, all prepping you for Easter and Holy Week. And then you have the Easter season, which is 40 days. And then you have the 50th day as Pentecost. So you have all of this because you go into the Ascension, which happens on a Thursday, which is technically the 40 days away. But it's all this giant, enormous celebration. So I know this kind of goes as a question. Why so much tradition behind this time?
It's very important.
Yeah. And if there was ever anything that brought meaning to this world, it's what Jesus did in his final week and in the 40 days following his resurrection. If there was ever meaning and purpose in this world, right? And Paul says this. That's what's so fascinating. Paul even says this. If Christ hasn't been raised from the dead, then our faith is worthless. Our faith is pointless. And he kind of lays it on thick. And then he comes back and he says, but Christ has been raised from the dead. So yeah, there's a whole lot of meaning, a whole lot of things like that. How are you guys going to be celebrating this week?
I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know either because usually I go to my aunt's house and we would go and do an Easter egg hunt with the kids and just have a family dinner. But our family's really big, so it'd be 3 family dinners for most families.
Oh Lord.
In one. But it's just something kind of interesting, And I'm gonna miss that because we don't really get to have that this year, and it's just one of those things that it really sucks about this whole thing that's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the Cressels mentioned in Costa Rica, they walk from house to house and each family joins as they walk along and they end up at church and they pray together. I mean, what a cool tradition there too. So you're thinking of a lot of stuff we usually do that's not going to happen this year.
Yeah.
So from our conversation, and that's a question for you guys. You might be asking yourself the same thing of, oh, wow, yeah, we don't do a whole lot of, or we're not going to be able to do a whole lot of what we usually do. So what are we going to do this year? So what are some things you think to give a little more meaning, to set apart what's going on? because it's such different circumstances to be having church but not in church.
Yeah.
As not a collective church. We're church is still happening. We're just not all gathered together in the same room. We're gathered together virtually. So how are you going to bring a little more meaning to this Holy Week?
Well, for me, I always have family with my dinner or dinner with my family on Sundays, but I think this week I'm gonna try and have a bigger dinner and have more meaning behind it than just let's go watch TV and hang out and stuff like that. You know, we'll have more of a purpose for this one, and it obviously, since we can't go and do stuff and all that, I'm honestly just gonna spend quality time with my family.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to do it. So here's a good question. What are some ways maybe you can enhance that quality time with your family you're going to have, right? Because right now we're all getting a lot of quality time with our families for the most part, right? We're all together.
Yeah.
So what are some ways to set that time apart over these next 3 days?
I mean, it can go anywhere from just, I mean, obviously I personally am going to try and get off electronics. Like, that's going to be my big thing, is if we're together as a family, we're going to be off electronics, because there's no purpose if we're all just going to be buried in our screens and we're not going to have a conversation, or not even going to get to visit with each other. That seems kind of pointless to me. So that's going to be my big thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. What about you, Clayton? What are you thinking?
Yeah, definitely for sure. Just like getting rid of the distractions and just enjoying the time that you do get with your family, because there's not really much you can do. So just enjoy the time you do have.
Yeah, and I'm thinking other ways you might want to set apart some time, or some things you can do to set apart that time. Like, I know for me, if I were home, like, or if I'm thinking about when we would all come together under the same roof and stuff like that, like, I would probably help mom out, like making sure like the dinner table was ready. Do you need any help with that? Can we set this out? Can we set out can we even light some candles? Because we never light candles because that's just special occasion time, or can we watch a movie together? Is there a movie we can watch? Can we find some stuff? I was actually trying to work this week on building a list of movies I would suggest and trying to share the platforms where you can watch them and things like that. Because I think there are a lot of really good, what I call Jesus movies, which are the movies that are literally about Jesus's life, death and resurrection, versus what I would call like a Christ film or a sneaky Jesus movie where it's like about a superhero, but it's really about Jesus. But anyways, I was going to kind of share that with people to kind of give them some ideas. So we'll see. I know they also did a good job with Justin. What's up, man? We're also doing a good job of sharing other things that we can be doing as a community of faith. I mean, maybe you do make tomb cookies like Caroline put. So look, I mean, I'm sure if you Google Easter tomb cookies, you can find something like that, or Easter traditions that we can do at home this year. You'll find a lot of stuff.
How do you make a tomb cookie?
Well, like you would make a cookie that looks
Is it like a
the tomb.
gingerbread house?
No, like
Like you build the actual tomb?
no, you'd make a cookie that
You got
looks
your little
like
Jesus
the empty
gingerbread
tomb.
inside?
Like you do the gate and then like the stone rolled away.
You lost me.
Yeah.
Like a cookie. Imagine a cookie.
Flat cookie.
And
This
then
is
like
1D.
that's like a tomb that looks like the tomb. Like you color
Like the
it,
circle?
You color it. You color it. You have to do like icing and stuff.
So like the rock in front of the tomb.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But like, yeah.
So we're doing rock cookies.
Seems too
Yeah,
simple.
rock
Too
cookies.
too simple. Too simple. We need to complicate that more.
That's awesome. You guys are getting some time together, Lexi. So yeah, and the extremely large Zooms during this time too. So all great ways to kind of practice. And honestly, if you need help, reach out, finding some sort of tradition this week. I think that'd be awesome. But because whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter if that's really the lesson of it too. Doesn't matter if it's perfect. Doesn't matter if it's not going exactly right. What matters is, are you finding meaning during this most meaningful time of the year, remembering the one thing in my life, at least, that actually gives my life meaning and purpose, that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. And because he did that, or with that, he offers that same promise to each and every one of us, which is huge.
Do you think that people overlook Easter?
100% yes. I think Easter, if I look at I'm a church year nerd. Okay. So I'm kind of a traditions nerd because I like meaning. I need meaning. I want meaning. I crave meaning. So if I were to, I typically ask people like, what's the most important day for the church? What are they going to tell me?
Christmas.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
majority- yeah.
Yeah, they're always going to say Christmas. And then you say, what else? And they say, oh, yeah, Easter too. And it's like, yes, Christmas is incredibly important. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. It's not important because of Santa and the Grinch and snow and lights and all this other stuff. It's important because of Jesus. And it kind of blows your mind when you really think about it. Actually, one of my favorite services in the church year has to do with Christmas Day, which we don't even usually think about. We think about Christmas Eve. That's because Christmas Day kind of talks about that blow your mind factor of God became flesh. The infinite took on finite. Crazy stuff. But Easter is actually the big deal. If you didn't have Easter, you wouldn't have Christmas. And yes, if you didn't have Christmas, you wouldn't have Easter. But Easter is the biggest deal, right? And you have 80 days, 90 days around this one day because it's the most big deal. Christmas, you get 3-4 weeks leading up to it. You know what I mean? So it's still a big deal. Third biggest day in the church year? Anybody? Pentecost. Yes. Because we typically forget about it. But again, another reality of the gift of the Holy Spirit, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. The reason any of us can believe right now is because the Holy Spirit was poured out just as Jesus promised. Just as he promised. And when it did, the church exploded. Right? But we normally don't talk about Pentecost and we think, oh, that's weird. Why are we talking about? And it's like, yeah, exactly. So anyways, I think Easter's a big deal. I think oftentimes we do overlook it. And I hope that what a great opportunity we have, especially this year, to really take to heart the message of Easter for each of our own homes right now and our own families, that Jesus Christ died for you and that he rose again for you so that you can have confidence in every single promise that he ever made to you, that he continues to pour out to you through his Spirit, through his work. And that's what we get to talk about this week. That's what we get to talk about. And that's what's going to bring us meaning. So whatever happens in your homes, I hope Jesus comes to it this week. I mean, that's really where I'm at.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. I think that means, does that mean we're wrapping up?
Yeah, we're pretty good.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've got Coffee Talk Bible Study tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. We're walking through this week. We're in Luke 22:23, sorry. And we're walking through this last week of Jesus. So we've hit Palm Sunday already. We've hit what the week looked like. So we're actually walking through the last nights that Jesus had. So Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, we're covering all that. Tomorrow morning, 10:30 on YouTube. You can find these posted on YouTube. You can find past talks that we've done for Let's Talk About It. You can find past live streams of Coffee Talk Bible Study. Should be an awesome time. We'll see you there. And hey, here's the other thing we want you guys to do this week. Send us what you want to talk about. A lot of times we've been coming up with the topics for Let's Talk About It. What do you want to talk about? Send those, message those to us, text one of us. Anything like that's going to be awesome. But we'll see you tomorrow morning. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Let's
Thanks so
talk
much.
about it.